And I appreciate everybody's comments on what we're doing. And I'd like to say that I too believe that both these collective bargaining units are doing great jobs. And I don't think that that's the question, at least for this council member, as to whether people are doing a good job. What happened was many years ago when we started to give away health care because it was $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a year, that cost has now escalated up to about $20,000 a year. So I know when Councilman McAllister talks about forecasts and notes, fiscal notes, what that fiscal note says is what it cost us. Nowhere does it say how we're paying for it. That's what I'm talking about. I know what the cost is. Next year, we have a 3-point, and I agree with you, Councilman McAllister, that we did put the money in. And that's a credit to everybody on this council and should be seen by everybody that works in those units as our good faith to fund those for this year. That's not what's in front of us. It's a 3-year deal. And next year, we have a $3.8 million deficit, structural deficit. As I think Brian, our financial analyst, and now he moved from the treasurer's office, said at our hearings this year, we could raise a maximum of $5.8 million. So what happens? That's my question, not whether people deserve raises, inflationary raises at 2.75%. That's not the question. The question is, where do we get the money from to pay it? And I've sat down with our accountants. I asked them to look at the numbers, to figure out how much it's going to cost, to look at the cost of commodities going up at modest rates, healthcare going up at modest rates. For the first time in the history of the city of Warwick, we have more retirees than we have active employees. So let me repeat that. We have more retirees than we have active employees. The active employees don't pay anything for health insurance. You folks pay their health insurance. They don't even pay 20%. And the problem becomes, how is that sustainable? It's not sustainable. A few years ago, the actuary came before the council on health care and told us we're already at the point of no return. There's two people that are very close to me. One's a family member of mine, and she works for another town. And she was promised a pension that was about $50,000 a year. And when everybody makes promises that you know you can't keep, you don't have to listen to me. Those aren't my words. Those what the actuary is telling us. My relative's now going to make, after the state slashed it, $19,000 a year. So, from this councilman's perspective, I don't want to be the one that lies to people and tells them that they have a secure future. This councilman wants to be on the record as telling people that it's not a secure future. That's not my analysis. That's the analysis out of the experts out of Houston. They're the ones that said we're at the point of no return. I'll write everybody in this room a check for $1 million. Go cash it. Look what happened in Central Falls. Look what happened in the Coventry Fire District. Look what's happening in Providence or Detroit, California, the country of Greece. The question is, when we make promises, you have to keep those promises. Otherwise, that's not a very honest thing to do, to kick it down the road. Those numbers that I went over with the accountants, and they were throwing out numbers at 3.5% increase for health insurance. We all know that was about 7. I was trying to lessen the burden. Puts it about $10 million short. And we're locked in for 3 years. I know we want to be friends with people. I know we want to be friends with people. I want to be friends with people, especially people that do a good job. But I don't want to tell people something that's not accurate and isn't the truth. These people rely on us to tell them what's going to happen. To say that because somebody put out a fiscal note, we're fine, that just, the fiscal note tells you what you owe for the contract. It doesn't tell you anything about any of the other provisions. I'm not going to name names, but I was talking to a well-respected council member tonight. And that council member said, we can't give the benefits that we did to new hirees that the old ones got because it's not sustainable. That's not addressed in these contracts. I'm not talking about being able to afford $500,000. I'm talking about legacy costs that are going to bring down this city. And it wasn't on our watch, to the credit of Mayor Solomon, who sat up here for many years, who fought for the taxpayers, who brought this to our attention, who brought out the fact that we should go out to bid for Blue Cross. We had no bid contracts for Blue Cross. I sat on those fights. That's my concern. My concern isn't telling everybody, here's your contract. My concern is 5, 10, 15 years from now, when you folks can no longer work and you're not faced with what my relatives faced with, being promised $50,000 and getting 19. So they got to work other jobs. Or one of my staff members who works part-time for me, who worked for the state of Rhode Island for 30 years, whose benefit was slashed over 50%. I just can't state it any more succinctly than that. This isn't an adversarial discussion. It's the truth. I mean, we can negotiate whatever we want. We'll give you 3.5%, 4%. But when your retirement's not there, like it was for those people, that's a bad day. That's a bad day. That 5-year forecast that I was looking at on a conservative, with a 3.5% increase, and now we have a 5-year forecast that we have to put out to the state of Rhode Island, we're showing around a $52 million shortfall over 5 years. I mean, maybe next year we can pull everything out of the reserve, or another big chunk. Hopefully we can balance something. But I've always said this, and I know Mayor Solomon was up here for many years, and I think he repeated a lot of my comments. 2 years ago, the annual required contribution for health care for the city of Warwick was $24 million a year. We have no savings plan for that. We could talk about pension 1 for fire, pension 2 for police, pension 1 for police, and pension 2 for fire, and what's in good shape and what isn't. But this year it went up $1 million to $25 million. And I always get a chuckle when the actuaries come here, because the actuaries, I ask them, are you assuming when you make your calculation for the next year that we're putting in $25 million? And they look at us in the eye and they say, yes, we're assuming you're paying that $25 million. And we're not. So it only goes up $1 million. Why don't you have them run the numbers where we're not putting the $25 million in and see how that increases? Right now, with unfunded liabilities for healthcare, pensions, and I say unfunded liabilities. How about if we just talk about all liabilities, bonds and everything else? We're at close to $1 billion with bonding, pensions, and healthcare. I wish everybody good luck with that. But I'm not going to sit here and vote for something that I know down the line that hasn't changed any of the issues going forward. Every time somebody comes in, they come in under those old systems. Those old systems that have lifetime health care. And Councilman Howe just talked about how arbitration didn't work for the teacher's contract. There was 10 items. I think they won 8 of them. The school department. Significant items like size of classrooms. And I wasn't prepared for that question, but if you go ask the school department, you'll find out it was significant, the savings. Next year, or in a few weeks, we're faced with a potential Carullo action from the school department, which could be $4 to $8 million. Where's that going to come from? We have a fire pension contract dispute. As to, I think we've added about 50 new firefighters, saying that to the credit of the previous administration, they renegotiated and had provisions regarding new firefighters. They're saying, no, those didn't take effect. It goes back to the old system that's bankrupting the city. These are issues that affect the people in this room. It affects our family and friends. It affects our kids and their ability to live and work here. We can do whatever we want tonight, but at the end of the day, we hurt everybody. We hurt them, and we hurt everybody that we grew up here with. I mean, at least I grew up here. I moved here in 1967 when I was 2. So, I would just caution everybody on this council that this isn't a ratification vote on a contract This is about legacy costs, the ability to pay them, and the ability to pay the contract. It's not about who deserves what. Of course people deserve raises. But we gave them our promise that when they retire, those retirement benefits will be there. And if we don't start addressing those in new contracts, and we don't start addressing that in the future, I don't want to see these people back here 5, 10 years from now saying, what happened? Well, the receiver came in and renegotiated all your deals. Sorry. Oh, there was one council member, several council members over the years that talked about that. Maybe they'll come back and say, hey, Steve, I remember you telling me that. And I'll say, I tried. It's just, you know, what can I say? Is there...